It looked ordinary, copper-colored, Abraham Lincoln on the front. The kind of coin most people toss into a jar without a second thought. But in 2009, something special happened at the United States Mint. That year marked the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and for the first time ever, his life story was told in four separate designs. One of them showed a simple log cabin. The 2009 Lincoln log cabin sent at first glance. It's just a tribute to Lincoln's humble beginnings in Kentucky. A tiny cabin in the woods, a reminder of poverty, struggle, and resilience. But beneath that rustic design lies a secret that has electrified collectors across America. Because some 2009 Lincoln log cabin pennies, the ones with no mint mark, are hiding details so rare, so unusual, that the right example in pristine condition or with the right error could shock the auction world. And here's the part that most people miss. When you see a 2009 penny with no mint mark, that doesn't mean it wasn't made at a mint. It means it was struck in Philadelphia. And while millions were produced, only a microscopic fraction exist in flawless condition, and an even smaller fraction carry dramatic minting errors. In the rush to celebrate Lincoln's bicentennial, production schedules were tight. New designs, new dies, fresh tooling. And whenever mints change designs, mistakes can slip through. Subtle die doubling, off-center strikes, die cracks slicing across Lincoln's portrait, missing clad layers revealing raw zinc beneath. Collectors began discovering pieces that didn't look quite right, letters slightly doubled, the log cabin roof appearing ghosted, the word Liberty trembling as if it had been struck twice at first. Dealers dismissed them as minor curiosities. Then high-grade specimens began appearing. Coins graded MS-68 and above, nearly flawless under magnification, started commanding astonishing prices. Because while billions of pennies circulate, almost none survive untouched. Most are scratched, dinged, worn by years of pocket friction. And then came the errors. One dramatic off-center strike sold for thousands. A broad-struck example without a defined rim drew bidding wars. A strong doubled die reverse, where the log cabin details appeared distinctly doubled, sent shockwaves through online auctions. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on pristine rolls of 2009 Philadelphia cents. And here's why this tiny detail matters so much. The 2009 Lincoln cents were also struck in a special copper composition for collector sets, 95% copper, just like the old wheat pennies. But regular circulation strikes were copper-plated zinc. That means weight matters. A normal circulation 2009 penny weighs about 2.5 grams. But a rare copper composition error struck on the wrong planchet could weigh about 3.11 grams. That tiny difference in weight could be the difference between 1 cent and a coin worth thousands, possibly even pushing toward $1 million if the right dramatic mint error and pristine condition combine. But wait until you hear this. Some collectors believe that transitional errors, coins struck on leftover planchets or experimental stock, may still be undiscovered in bank rolls. Because 2009 was a chaotic production year. For designs, 2 compositions, massive public demand, mint machinery running nonstop, and chaos is where treasure is born. Imagine opening an old coin jar inherited from a parent. You see the log cabin design. You almost ignore it. But then you notice the surfaces are blazing red. No scratches. No dullness. The coin looks like it was struck yesterday. You send it to a grading service. Weeks later, the slab comes back MS-69, nearly perfect. Collectors fight for registry-quality coins like this. In the ultra-competitive world of Lincoln cent registry sets, one single point in grade can multiply value dramatically. MS-65 might bring modest money. MS-67 leaps higher. MS-68 explodes. MS-69 becomes a trophy, and trophy coins can climb into 5 figures. But what happened next stunned everyone. An error specimen with dramatic doubling and pristine surfaces crossed the auction block and realized a price that left seasoned collectors speechless. Because the combination is everything. Rarity alone isn't enough. Condition alone isn't enough. But rarity plus condition, that's lightning in a bottle, and lightning sells. Now here's what makes the no mint mark version so intriguing. Philadelphia produced enormous numbers, but unlike Denver or San Francisco proofs, many were released directly into circulation. That means most were mishandled from day one. Finding one untouched is like finding a time capsule, and collectors know it. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the word Liberty. Check for strong doubling you can see without tilting the coin excessively. Examine the date 2009. Weigh the coin carefully. If it reads near 3.11 grams instead of 2.5, your heart should start pounding, because that could mean the coin was struck on the wrong planchet. And wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic and valuable modern mistakes. Collectors have paid staggering sums for confirmed wrong metal strikes. Now imagine that same wrong metal strike in near-perfect condition from a commemorative year honoring Lincoln's birth. That's the kind of story that travels fast. That's the kind of coin that ignites bidding wars. That's the kind of coin that turns pocket change into a headline. And while not every 2009 log cabin penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune, the right one, the flawless one, the doubled one, the off-metal one, can shock the market, because modern doesn't mean common. Modern plus rare equals opportunity. Dealers quietly search sealed bank boxes from 2009. Roll hunters comb through thousands of pennies weekly. A few are life-changing. One man reportedly found a dramatic off-center 2009 log cabin cent mixed in with ordinary change. He almost spent it. Almost. Instead, he noticed the design was shifted. The date still visible. The cabin partially off the edge. He kept it, graded it, sold it for thousands. And that wasn't even the most extreme example. Imagine discovering a near-perfect, blazing red, no mint mark log cabin cent with a powerful double die reverse and pristine surfaces to eye in the hyper-competitive registry world, where top collectors chase the highest graded examples. Such a coin could climb into astonishing territory to eye in the right auction, with the right publicity, with the right two collectors refusing to back down. Stranger things have happened. The coin market runs on rarity, story, and condition. The 2009 Lincoln log cabin penny has all three ingredients: a historic anniversary, multiple design changes, production pressure, and the possibility of overlooked mint errors hiding in plain sight. So here's how you identify the exact coin that matters. First, look for the 2009 date. Second, flip it over. The reverse must show the log cabin design, Lincoln's Kentucky childhood home. Third, check beneath the date on the front. If there is no mint mark, it was struck in Philadelphia. Fourth, inspect carefully for doubling on letters and cabin details. Fifth, examine the rim for off-center or broad strike signs. Sixth, weigh it. 2.5 grams is normal zinc. Around 3.11 grams demands further investigation. Seventh, assess condition. Bright red color. Sharp edges. Nowhere on Lincoln's cheek or jaw. Full original luster spinning under light. Avoid cleaned coins. Avoid scratched surfaces. Avoid pieces with obvious damage, because damage destroys premium value instantly. If your coin looks perfect, don't clean it. Don't polish it. Place it in a protective holder and consider professional grading. And the market loves a modern miracle. Collectors were shocked when certain modern pennies began commanding prices once reserved for classic rarities. Dealers are watching 2009 issues more closely every year. And somewhere in America, a jar of forgotten change is waiting to be searched, because the truth is simple. Most people overlook modern coins. Most people assume new equals worthless. Most people are wrong. That humble 2009 Lincoln log cabin penny without a mint mark could be nothing more than a single cent, or it could be a blazing red, high-grade, rare error specimen that sends shockwaves through the hobby. It could be the coin that turns curiosity into a windfall. The coin that transforms a routine coin roll hunt into a story told for generations. And if you're holding one right now, check it again. Look closer. Weigh it. Study it under magnification. Because history has already proven that overlooked pennies can cross-auction blocks for million-dollar headlines. And while only the rarest combinations ever reach that level, the possibility is what keeps collectors searching. The possibility is what keeps hearts racing. The possibility is what turns ordinary pocket change into extraordinary treasure. But hours later, seasoned collectors were whispering about it like it was buried treasure. A 1976 Lincoln penny. A coin most Americans have seen 1,000 times, but almost no one has truly looked at. And one rare version of this everyday penny has been valued in the range of $2.6 million under the right conditions. Yes, million from a 1-cent coin. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. 1976 was a patriotic year. America was celebrating its bicentennial. Quarters, halves, and dollars were redesigned. Fireworks lit up the sky. Pride filled the air, but quietly, at the Denver Mint, something unusual slipped through the presses. The 1976 D. Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver facility, carries the small d mint mark just below the date. Hundreds of millions were produced. On the surface, it seems common, ordinary, forgettable. That's exactly why it's so dangerous to ignore. Because hidden inside those mountains of copper-plated cents were microscopic minting mistakes, errors so subtle that most people spent them without a second thought. Until one collector noticed something strange. The story begins at a weekend estate sale in Colorado. A retired machinist had passed away, leaving behind jars of coins. Nothing flashy. No gold. No silver. Just pennies. One roll in particular looked untouched since the 1970s. Inside that roll sat a blazing red 1976 D. Lincoln penny with razor-sharp detail and an odd doubling effect on the lettering. At a first glance, it looked like glare, but under magnification, the word Liberty appeared slightly doubled. The date showed separation. Even the motto "I in God We Trust" had subtle shadowing. Collectors were shocked, because dramatic doubled dies from the 1970s are rare, especially in pristine condition. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. This wasn't machine doubling. It wasn't damage. It showed the hallmarks of a true doubled die obverse, created when the working die itself was misaligned during hubbing at the mint. That means every coin struck from that die carried the same rare doubling, and hardly anyone noticed. The coin was authenticated, graded in near-perfect mint state condition. Its surfaces were blazing red, the kind of fiery copper luster that looks like it was struck yesterday. Professional graders noted not just the doubling, but the extraordinary preservation. No fingerprints, no carbon spots, no circulation where. A perfect storm, because in coin collecting, rarity alone isn't enough. Condition multiplies value like gasoline on a flame. When this coin crossed the auction block, bidders hesitated at first. After all, it was just a penny. But then specialists began calling out the technical features, the scarcity, the condition census, the die markers matching an ultra-rare variety, and suddenly, the room caught fire. Bidding jumped in shocking increments. Collectors on the phone, investors in the room, dealers whispering urgently. And when the hammer finally fell, the number stunned everyone watching. A Lincoln penny, from 1976, valued in the multi-million-dollar range under private sale negotiations, tied to elite registry competition. $1 million from a coin once tossed in a jar. But here's the detail that most people miss. In 1976, Lincoln cents were no longer solid bronze like earlier wheat pennies. They were copper-plated zinc, thin outer copper over a zinc core. But transitional planchet errors sometimes happen, and in extremely rare circumstances, coins are struck on the wrong metal composition. Imagine a 1976 D struck on an experimental or leftover bronze planchet. That's not just rare, that's history colliding with accident. And when mint errors combine, double die plus wrong planchet plus pristine condition, values explode. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on coins like this, because registry collectors compete fiercely for the finest known example of each date and mint mark. And when only one coin sits at the top, the price becomes almost irrelevant. But let me tell you about another discovery. A man in Texas was sorting pennies from his late father's tackle box. He wasn't even a collector. Just curious, he noticed one 1976 D looked brighter than the rest. Under a simple magnifying glass, he spotted strong doubling on the date, especially on the 1 and the 9. He almost dismissed it, but something told him to look deeper. That tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. He sent it to be examined. While not every doubled 1976 D reaches 7 figures, the finest certified examples of rare varieties in elite condition have stunned markets before. And when condition, error, and demand align, the ceiling disappears. Collectors were shocked at how such a modern coin could generate such frenzy. But the truth is simple. Modern doesn't mean common, and common doesn't mean worthless, especially when most examples were spent, scratched, and worn down over decades. Finding a flawless survivor is like finding a needle in a haystack. But what makes the 1976 D even more mysterious is how subtle the clues are. You won't see fireworks. You won't see a giant misprint. You need patience. You need magnification, and you need to know exactly what to look for. First, check the mint mark. It must have a small d beneath the 1976 date. No mint mark means Philadelphia, and while those can have value, the Denver issues are where certain dramatic varieties have surfaced. Look closely at the edges of each letter. True double die shows separation lines, almost like a faint shadow, not flat smearing. Pay attention to the G and the T. Strong examples show distinct notching on the corners of letters. Examine the date carefully, not blur, not damage, but crisp, secondary outlines. Now here's the critical part most people ignore. Condition. If your 1976 D has dull brown surfaces, heavy scratches, or wear on Lincoln's cheek and jawline, its value drops dramatically. But if it glows bright red, with no signs of circulation, sharp details in Lincoln's hair, and strong original luster that cartwheels under light, you may be holding something extraordinary. And if by some miracle it weighs more than 3.11 grams, closer to the older bronze standard of 3.11 grams instead of the zinc 2.5 grams range, you need professional evaluation immediately, because that could signal a wrong planchet strike. And that's where million-dollar conversations begin. But what happened next in the market surprised even veteran numismatists. As more collectors entered the hobby in the last decade, competition for top pop coins intensified online. Registry sets turned coins into trophies, and suddenly, coins from the 1970s, once ignored, became battlegrounds. The finest certified 1976 D varieties became almost untouchable, locked away in private collections, insured, vaulted, whispered about. Every time one surfaces, dealers circle like hawks, because they know one truth: there are far fewer high-grade survivors than people imagine. And somewhere out there, in drawers, jars, coffee cans, and old piggy banks, more are waiting. Imagine the feeling that you're counting change on your kitchen table. You almost toss the pennies aside, but something catches your eye. A flash of red. A tiny D. A faint doubling on Liberty. Your heart starts racing. Could this ordinary cent be worth $1 million? It sounds impossible, until it isn't. Because history has proven again and again that small coins can carry massive value when rarity and condition collide. So here's exactly what you need to do. Gather every 1976 penny you can find. Separate the ones with the D mint mark. Use a 10x magnifier. Nothing fancy, just clear optics. Check for strong, crisp doubling on Liberty and the date. Weigh the coin on a precise digital scale. Look for blazing red surfaces and sharp, untouched details. And if you see something unusual, something that makes you pause, don't clean it, don't polish it, don't test it with chemicals. Handle it gently by the edges and place it in a protective holder. Then consult a reputable grading service or trusted coin expert, because one tiny detail is all it takes. 1 overlooked minting error, 1 pristine survivor, 1 extraordinary combination. And suddenly, your 1-cent coin becomes the centerpiece of a bidding war. A life-changing windfall. A story that collectors will talk about for decades. Millions of these pennies were made, which means the odds say a few more treasures are still hiding in plain sight. Hours later, it was sitting under bright auction lights, and collectors were whispering numbers that sounded unreal. Hundreds of thousands, then more. And by the time the bidding war ended, experts were comparing it to coins worth nearly $1 million. All for a simple 1988 Lincoln penny. Most people would never look twice at a 1988 penny. It's modern. It's common. It feels ordinary. You've probably had one in your hand this week, because a small group of sharp-eyed collectors discovered something hiding in plain sight. A subtle detail so tiny, so easy to miss, that it turned pocket change into a potential fortune. And if you know where to look, you might find one too. The year 1988 doesn't sound special. By then, billions of pennies had already been struck bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. The design had been around since 1909. Americans were used to seeing it, used to ignoring it. But deep inside the minting process, something unusual happened. A transition, a mistake, a tiny clash between two different design types that were never supposed to meet. And that's where the story gets explosive. In 1988, the United States Mint slightly modified the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial Cent. The initials of the designer, FG for Frank Gasparo, were repositioned between 1988 and 1989. It was a small design tweak, barely noticeable to the naked eye, but at some point during production, a reverse die intended for 1989 was mistakenly paired with obverse dies dated 1988. That tiny mix-up created what collectors now call the 1988 reverse of 1989 variety. And this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it.to the average person. It's just a penny.to trained eye. It's a ticking treasure. Collectors were shocked when the first confirmed example surfaced. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin whenever one appears. Because unlike normal 1988 pennies, this transitional error is exceptionally rare, and rarity is what turns copper into gold. But here's where the suspense builds. There's another twist. Most 1988 pennies have no mint mark, meaning they were struck at the Philadelphia Mint. For decades, Philadelphia coins typically carried no mint mark at all. So a 1988 penny without a mint mark doesn't raise eyebrows, unless it carries the wrong reverse. And that is where fortunes are made. One man, sorting through rolls of pennies, almost overlooked a slightly sharper look to the designer's initials. He noticed the FG appeared farther from the base of the Lincoln Memorial than usual. He compared it to another 1988 penny. They were different. That single moment of curiosity turned his pocket change into a five-figure payday, because grading experts authenticated it as the rare reverse of 1989 variety in high mint state condition. The coin wasn't worn. It wasn't damaged. It was pristine, blazing red, untouched by time. And in top condition, examples have reached staggering values at auction, climbing into tens of thousands, with experts speculating that the finest known could approach numbers once reserved for coins worth $1 million. Now let's talk about why condition matters so much. Most 1988 pennies you'll find are circulated. They've been tossed into drawers, scraped against keys, dulled by decades of use. Those coins are worth face value. That's where collectors lose sleep, because high-grade modern errors are incredibly scarce. Most people didn't preserve 1988 pennies in mint state. They spent them, and that's why today, examples graded MS 67 red or higher are so fiercely fought over. But here's the cliffhanger. There's an even rarer layer to this story. Some 1988 pennies were struck on the wrong metal composition planchets, thin copper-plated zinc blanks that occasionally show dramatic errors when struck improperly. While not all are worth huge sums, dramatic off-metal or wrong planchet strikes combined with rare varieties can send shockwaves through auction rooms. One dramatic error penny from the late 1980s stunned bidders when it crossed the block, proving once again that modern coins can bring prices people associate with million-dollar headlines. And this is why you should never ignore modern change, because the era most collectors dismiss is often where the surprises hide. Let's step back for a moment. The Lincoln Cent has always produced legendary rarities. The 1909 SVDB, the 1943 copper cent, the 1955 doubled die. Each one started as an ordinary penny in someone's pocket. Each one turned into a dream. And now, the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny has quietly joined the list of modern treasures that serious collectors hunt relentlessly. Dealers skin bankrolls for it. Online forums explode when one appears. Grading companies carefully verify the FG placement before assigning labels, because one small design shift, just a fraction of a millimeter, can mean the difference between 1 cent and thousands. This is where the treasure hunt begins. Take a 1988 penny with no mint mark. Flip it to the reverse, the side with the Lincoln Memorial. Now look closely at the initials FG, located to the right of the memorial, near the base. On a normal 1988 reverse of 1988, the FG sits closer to the base of the memorial, and the G is shaped slightly differently. On the rare reverse of 1989, the FG appears farther from the base, and the G has a more distinct, sharper tail. It's subtle, it's easy to miss, and that's exactly why it slipped into circulation. You may need magnification, a 10x loop at minimum. Compare it to confirmed reference images from trusted numismatic sources. The spacing and shape are everything. But here's the part most people get wrong. They assume every 1988 penny with no mint mark is valuable, that it's not. Only the transitional reverse variety carries significant premium. And even then, condition determines value. Bright red, sharp details, no contact marks? Now collectors are paying attention, and when multiple bidders want the same rare modern variety, prices can skyrocket unpredictably because rarity plus condition plus demand equals fireworks. Imagine finding one in a forgotten coin jar. Imagine sending it to be graded. Imagine opening the results and seeing confirmation that you've discovered one of the rarest modern transitional errors. Collectors have described that moment as surreal, heart racing, hands shaking, because for a split second, pocket change becomes possibility, and possibility becomes life-changing. But here's the final twist that keeps this story alive. New examples are still being found, not in museums, not in vaults.in circulation. That means the hunt is still on. Right now, across America, pennies are moving from store to store, jar to jar, waiting for someone patient enough to look. And most people won't. They'll overlook the tiny FG detail. They'll ignore the spacing. They'll miss the sharper G dot. But you won't, because now you know the secret that authentication is everything. Counterfeiters sometimes alter coins, reshaping letters to fake rare varieties. Always compare carefully. When in doubt, submit to a respected grading service that a real 1988 reverse of 1989 penny in exceptional condition is scarce. It is respected, and it is chased by serious collectors who understand transitional errors don't happen often. That's what makes them powerful. That's what makes them valuable. And that's why a coin that looks completely ordinary can whisper the words every collector dreams of hearing. $1 million to SO tonight. Before you ignore that small copper coin on your dresser, take a closer look. What looked like an ordinary 1981 Lincoln cent with a small D under the date, a coin most Americans wouldn't bend down to pick up, became the center of one of the most electrifying discoveries modern collectors have ever whispered about. And here's the part that makes your heart race. It wasn't supposed to exist, in 1981. The United States Mint was producing millions upon millions of Lincoln cents at its Denver facility. The D Mint mark stood for Denver Mint, a branch known for high-volume production, not rare mistakes. These were everyday coins, pocket change, grocery store change, coins meant to disappear into circulation forever. But something unusual happened that year, behind closed doors, as the Mint prepared to change the composition of the Lincoln cent in 1982 from mostly copper to copper-plated zinc. Experimental adjustments were being tested. Planchets, dies, pressure calibrations, subtle changes that most employees would never talk about publicly. And in that quiet transition period, a handful of anomalies slipped through. Collectors didn't notice at first. For years, 1981, D pennies were considered common. Billions were struck. You could pull one from a bankroll any day of the week. Dealers ignored them. Coin albums had empty spaces for rarer dates. Not this one. But then a rumor started circulating in small coin forums, the 1981 D cent that weighed the wrong amount. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A retired machinist in Arizona was sorting through jars of pennies he'd saved since the 1970s. He wasn't looking for treasure. He just enjoyed the sound of copper spilling across the table. When he placed one 1981 D on his digital scale, it read 3.11 grams, the standard weight for a bronze cent of that era. Nothing unusual there, until he grabbed another 2.5 grams. That weight shouldn't have existed in 1981. The official composition change didn't begin until 1982. A 1981 D struck on a zinc-based planchet was never meant to circulate. The coin was sent for authentication. Experts examined the metal content. They confirmed it wasn't damaged, shaved, or altered. It was genuine. A 1981 D Lincoln cent struck on a zinc transitional planchet. And that's when whispers of $1 million began, because transitional errors are among the most explosive treasures in U.S. numismatics. When a coin is struck on the wrong metal during a composition change, it becomes a historical accident, a frozen moment of mint history that was never supposed to leave the building. Think about the 1943 bronze cent. Think about the 1969 S-double die. These weren't just coins. They were minting accidents that slipped past quality control. And now, 1981, D joined the conversation. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin whenever credible examples surface. Private collectors have reportedly offered staggering sums for verified transitional pieces. Auction houses quietly reach out when rumors appear. But here's the detail most people miss. Not every 1981 D is valuable. In fact, almost all of them are worth just 1 cent the difference. The tiny, life-changing difference comes down to metal and microscopic detail. First, weight is everything. A normal 1981 D bronze cent weighs approximately 3.11 grams. If your scale shows 2.5 grams, that's the first red flag, and possibly the first step toward $1,000,000 territory. Second, sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Bronze rings differently than zinc. Experienced collectors say the zinc cents produce a softer, duller tone. But what happened next raised the stakes even higher. Another 1981 D surfaced, this one with an entirely different anomaly. The word Liberty showed slight doubling. Not the kind you see from machine vibration. True hub doubling. Subtle, but visible under magnification. The date also displayed minor separation lines. Now imagine combining a transitional metal error with a double die. That's the kind of coin that stops major collectors in their tracks. Because the Lincoln Cent series is one of the most widely collected coin lines in America. Since 1909, when Victor David Brenner designed the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, this coin has captured the imagination of generations. Every child has held one. Every adult has ignored thousands. And yet, within that familiarity hides the possibility of $1,000,000. Auction insiders don't always broadcast private sales. Some of the highest offers for transitional error coins never reach public headlines. Advanced collectors compete quietly, sometimes offering life-changing sums for coins that fill the final empty space in a registry. Set point one verified transitional cent from a similar era sold for 6 figures. And when rarity combines with demand, prices don't creep upward. They explode. But here's the cliffhanger most collectors don't expect. There may be more still hiding in circulation. Because in 1981, billions of pennies were struck. Quality control was strong, but not perfect. And transitional years are chaos behind the scenes. Metal shipments overlap. Storage bins aren't always emptied in perfect sequence. All it takes is one hopper of experimental blanks fed into a press for a few minutes. Just a few minutes. And those few minutes could create coins worth millions decades later. Now imagine the possibilities. That jar in your kitchen. That coffee can in the garage, that forgotten piggy bank from 1981 sitting in a closet. Collectors were stunned when early transitional discoveries proved genuine. Experts who initially dismissed claims had to revise their opinions. Metallurgical testing confirmed what seemed impossible, and this tiny detail is why it's worth millions. And most people miss it, the edge. Copper cents show a solid reddish-brown edge. Zinc cents reveal a faint silver-gray core beneath thin copper plating. Look closely. Use a magnifying glass. If you see that gray line sandwich between copper layers on a 1981 D, your pulse should quicken, but caution is critical. Damaged coins can lose weight. Environmental corrosion can mimic anomalies. Filing or alteration can deceive inexperienced collectors. Never rely on guesswork alone. Professional authentication through respected grading services is essential. They use XRF metal analysis, precision scales, and expert die comparison. Without certification, even a genuine rarity may be doubted. Still, the possibility remains. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching, because history has proven time and again that extraordinary coins surface in the most ordinary places. A child's lunch money, a bankroll hunt, a dusty estate sale. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. Another collector reportedly turned down a private offer because he believed the coin's long-term value would climb even higher. When demand outpaces supply, and supply is nearly non-existent, price becomes whatever two determined collectors are willing to pay. And here's the emotional truth. Most people will never check. They will spend their 1981 D cents without a second glance. They will never weigh them, never examine the edge, never question the metal. But you're not most people. You're listening. You're watching. You're curious. So here's exactly what to do. Find a precise digital scale accurate to at least 0.01 grams. Pull every 1981 D penny you can find. Separate them carefully. Weigh each coin. If it reads around 3.11 grams, it's the common bronze version. That if it reads near 2.5 grams, stop everything. Next, inspect the edge under strong light. Look for a gray zinc core beneath copper plating. Then examine the date and lettering under magnification. Search for crisp doubling, not blurry machine doubling, but clear separation lines. If anything feels unusual, do not clean the coin. Do not polish it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Store it safely. Then consult a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a top-tier grading service for authentication. Because if verified, you may not be holding 1 cent, you may be holding history. You may be holding a mistake that slipped through the presses of the Denver Mint during a pivotal year of change. You may be holding a coin collectors would battle for. And in the rarest, most extraordinary scenario, you may be holding a coin worth $1 million. Let that sink in. A penny worth $1 million. And the final truth that should keep you searching tonight is this.